Hello and welcome to this Let's Play tutorial campaign for Crusader Kings 2. I'm Something Awful Forums user King Turnip. For the purpose of this tutorial we're going to play as King Sigeric of Essex. The reason for that is that as a duke in England you're nicely cut off from all the various things that happen with the Charlemagne campaign, while being close enough to the mainland to feel like you're actually doing something. England is also nicely cut up into these little duchies, which makes expansion possible, if not exactly easy. It's more interesting than being stuck over in tribal Ireland is, and it doesn't require as much nuance and knowledge of the game mechanics as playing as like Sigurd o' Ring or some of the other pagan factions would be. So it's a nice place to get your feet under the table and just get used to what you're doing with the game. We're playing at the 769 start because why not, if you've got that expansion. If not, then most of the things will apply because even as Essex in this time period, you're still playing as a feudal ruler, so there aren't any differences compared to, say, the later starts like 1066 in that respect. Just the map is different and how everything's set out. So the purpose of this tutorial video series is just to give you an idea of what is going on with the game and sort of some of the big decisions that you can make. It's not going to be, it's impossible to replicate a Crusader Kings 2 game from playthrough to playthrough, just because the variety and the variability of what happens, the events and the characters as well. So it's just to show you what you can do in certain situations and hopefully give you an idea of sort of how to go about getting your medieval empire up and running, or at least get your medieval duchy up and running. So the first thing to do is, Sigeric is one of the many rulers who in this time period starts off unmarried, so you want to get him married fairly quickly. I know that if I click on this button here I'm going to have a choice of 3 Lombard princesses to choose from. Their stats are all randomly generated, which is quite useful. Because your stats are randomly generated as well, what can be a good idea is to have a look at what you're good at and see if there's anything that you think could be made up or even doubled down on by marrying someone. So you get half of your wife's stats added onto yours. Hopefully you play through the tutorial in the game so you've got an idea of what those stats are. So just looking at the 3 of them here, Dalfarada, Gerberga and Anselperga. Anselperga's good because she's got a high diplomacy score, but it's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. So we don't really benefit from that. Our weakest thing is stewardship, and we've got a decent intrigue score. So I'm actually going to suggest that we approach the King of Lombardy to marry his youngest daughter here, Dalfarada. Another slightly sneaky option here is for if you wanted to marry Princess Gisela of Francia, you might be able to arrange that. Oh no, they wouldn't go for that, but you could potentially marry King Carl's daughter to your son. But anyway, let's go back and select her as a good one. We get quite a lot of prestige for that because he's a king, and go ahead with that. The next thing to do is to set up your ambition and focus. Ambition, a good one to start with. We've already got a son who is 4. Not much to write home about yet. I do quite like the one for groom and heir. There are downsides to choosing this. The fertility bonus is useful for producing children, but does mean that under Gavelkind succession, which we've got at the moment, you could end up with lots of children and your realm being split lots of different ways, which is bad, but we're probably going to avoid that, so we're going to choose that. And then just because I think we need the extra stewardship, I'm going to suggest we go for the business here, which is good. You get a +2 for stewardship, and some of the events that and decisions that come out of this can be quite good if they ever fire, which they don't always. Get your council set up as well. At the moment, because we are a 2-province duchy and we control both of those, I'm not going to worry too much if we piss off some of our vassals. So the Marshal Baron Herewald of Tottenham. I don't care about him. We're going to be taking his barony soon enough anyway. So we're going to choose this guy because he's mildly better. Our steward is about as good as we're going to get. Spymaster, yeah, there's no one particularly great, so we'll leave him be. And the court chaplain, who I think his stats always look like this, so I think he's fixed, is fine. We're going to also make him our court physician because his learning score is very good, and you always want your court physician to have the highest learning score possible. What we're going to do next is study technology. We're going to send our terrible spymaster down to study technology in Constantinople. If he succeeds, we'll get a little bonus, and if he doesn't succeed, then I don't care. And if he gets captured, then he's terrible, so I don't care about that either. Marshal, train troops in Middlesex, for reasons I'll explain in a moment. Steward, collect taxes in Middlesex. Chancellor, fabricate claims in Surrey. The bonus as starting as Essex if you've got 3 single provinces down here, which are quite helpful. I tend to go Surrey, Sussex and then Kent because sometimes you can accidentally fabricate a claim on the Duchy of Kent, which costs a lot more money you don't have. And finally what we're going to do is we're going to set our crown focus as Middlesex because it's a better province than Essex. It's already got one more holding slot. And finally, we're going to set it as our capital. We can only do this every, 50 years? But that's fine. Unless things go drastically wrong, in which case our capital will move on its own. Middlesex is the far better choice for a capital compared to Essex. So we're going to do that. And finally, the last thing we're going to do before we get going is we're going to set up a plot for the barony of Tottenham. So this guy was our marshal, and he is no longer our marshal. So we're going to plot to kill him. And the reason we're going to do this is because he is currently the Baron of Tottenham. I don't recall there being a castle in Tottenham anymore, but maybe there is. We're the heir to that. He isn't married, he doesn't have any children, so if he dies, we inherit that barony. So that's what we want to do, which is good. And with all that over and done with, we are going to just about get going. Final thing to make a note of is that at the start of the game we are a tributary of King Offa of Mercia, who is this guy here. He is a fairly uninspiring man. He doesn't have a lot of troops, but he's got a fair few vassals, lots of children as you can see, and we pay, is it 25% of our annual income to him? Something like that anyway. But yeah, we're not going to worry too much about that. We are going to unpause the game and see what happens. Okay, so the King of Lombardy has agreed that we can marry his daughter, Dalfarada. The two options here we've got are to get a bit of money or to get some prestige. At this point the money is more useful, so we're going to take that and be on our merry way. What you can see now is that I am unpausing the game and cutting between things that aren't really happening, because one of the downsides of Crusader Kings 2 is that you do have periods of time where literally nothing happens. Because we've now got married, you can see that our stats have updated to reflect that. Partly we get our full council scores, so our Chancellor's score is 13, so they're all added on to our score, and we get half of our wife's score. So our stewardship is now 20 compared to 1 as it was when we started. That means that our domain is bigger. Our maximum domain that we can hold on to has gone up to 5 from 3, which is very useful because it means that we can capture a couple of provinces and be able to hold those personally for us. She is lustful, which is good. That means that she's more likely to have a child with us. That's what, a 25% bonus, 20% bonus to fertility, and we've got a 20% bonus to fertility from the groom and heir ambition. What I could have done instead of taking stewardship is I could have gone down the seduction route or the family, both of which confer additional bonuses to fertility, but it's probably not necessary unless I've accidentally or just, randomly rolled a really low base fertility score. We should get a couple of children with her fairly quickly. So now we've got a message from King Aurelio of Asturias, who is this 54-year-old bozo. He wants to marry Agatha, who is among the worst courtiers you will ever see. Nothing of any particular note. She's got vices, she's shy, she's arbitrary, she's slow. This happens every single game, to the point where I'm convinced that Agatha is actually either a joke that the developers put in or some historical figure of derision. But we're going to accept that because, frankly, if she leaves our court, then the average intelligence will probably go up. Okay, we've received an offer of an alliance from our father-in-law, King Desiderius of Lombardy. This is interesting. This suggests to me that he's going to go to war fairly soon. In this game, he tends to go to war for I don't know, is this Tunisia or whatever it is, this part of Africa here. And if we're in an alliance with him at the time, then we will be obliged to join that. I'm going to say no, because we gain nothing from that happening. You know, our wife is, what, 4th in line to the throne? 5th in line, because he's got a son. We're not going to get any territory out of it. We can't afford to send our troops down there. We don't even have any boats, for crying out loud. There's literally nothing we can contribute to that apart from raising our troops, which would cost us money. So no alliance, thank you very much, father-in-law. Please go away. The next thing we're going to do here as we pop on through to July is we're going to put our centralisation law up a bit. At the moment it's at minimum, which decentralised, which means that we can have lots of vassals, but our domain is slightly smaller. At the moment we have no vassals of any note. Baron level vassals don't count towards your vassal limit, which is up here. So there's really no downside to having low centralisation. Later on in the game you might find that there's a bit of a balancing act, but I generally find you can have, even a large empire, you can have centralisation at medium, as long as you can control your king vassals appropriately. So as long as you've got enough dukes under kings, there's not going to be much of an issue. But we can't go up to medium yet, so we're just going to tick that up to low centralisation. At the moment, we don't have an empowered council, so our councillors advise us, but they can't say anything or do anything to change what we do. We're, you know, according to our culture advances and the level of legalism and whatever, we can do whatever we want. So we're going to put that up, and it gets automatically improved because there's no one there to say no. So we've just started one of the event chains for the stewardship, which is we've bought an inn. So we spent 50 gold to buy a dilapidated inn that we happen to ride past in our coach. And as it happens, we've just got this decision here, which is pretty great. There might be situations where you want to choose chaste for your ruler, but honestly, 9 times out of 10 you're better choosing that one and taking it if you can. So it's another handy 20% bonus to fertility, plus it gets us +1 intrigue. Our plot chance to kill Baron Herewald of Tottenham is now above 100%, which is great. What we're also going to do, just to try and speed this up a little bit, we're going to throw the guys here. So if there's a little yellow hand here, we can bribe them and they will join in with the plot. So we're going to throw a couple of these some money, just to see if they will agree to it. So it takes up to 140, and we'll throw him some cash as well. So that should take us up above 150%, which should speed things up a lot more. And this is a decision that comes through from, I think it's Reaper's Due, to do with the prosperity, which is why we chose the Crown Focus for Middlesex. You take a small financial hit. That's scales depending on your income. You get a bit of a bonus to something. In this case, it's piety, and the prosperity of Middlesex increases as well. So we're definitely taking that one. And here we go, at the end of the second year of gameplay. We've had the event chain for the inn, the Drunken Squire, I named it. We gained 65 gold, which comes out as a net loss because we spent 50 on it and then spent some money to book various things. But yeah, we get 2 stewardship out of that, which is not too shabby at all. And we've just had this notification, which is that an event is going to fire to try and kill off, not that guy, he's helping us, try and kill off the Baron, who is now married, but she's not pregnant. I can't tell anyway. They're not automatically, doesn't pop up that they're pregnant until they're a couple of months in, I don't think. So we'll approve the plan, and our son is now old enough that we can give him an education trait. Education focus, sorry. There's a couple of different ways to choose this, really. I tend to go by what they're already good at. So as you can see, he's okay at diplomacy and intrigue, not great at martial or stewardship, and doesn't have any particular talent at learning. So I'm probably going to go down one of these two routes to focus on diplomacy. I find I get better results with humility. So I think etiquette, they can get playful, which more often than I would like turns into lunatic, which is fun, but not great if that's your ruler. Humility, yeah, it's not always great, but I find that the results tend to be slightly better. So we're going to go with that one for Sigeric's son. And here we go. The snake killed Baron Herewald, who is now dead, and the barony of Tottenham is now ours. And the reason you want to do this, particularly in your capital province, is that you get bonuses to, in your capital province, you get bonus to troop levies, So we get, it's easier to see it here. So as a capital county, you get plus 50% to any levies that the buildings in your holdings produce. This only applies to your capital county. Because our martial score is 9, we get a slight penalty to that as well, but it's massively overdone by the plus 50%. So you get a lot of troops from your capital, which is why we chose Middlesex, because we've already, and you can get unlucky and have the barons spawn with lots of intrigue, but generally he's pretty ordinary and doesn't have much of anything. It's pretty easy to get this barony. You've also got 2 slots that you can build on straight away, although they're quite expensive and it will take you a while to build on them. But you could very easily have 4 castles there, each putting out around 1,200 troops. So without too much effort and with a pretty rubbish martial score, you can have 5,000 troops or so just in your capital province, which is, particularly in the early game, absolutely nothing to sniff at all. If you get your prosperity high enough, then you can get an event that allows you to buy an additional holding slot for, I think it's based on your income again, but it's usually around sort of 600, 700 gold. Put another castle there, and you can have, 5 castles in your capital holding of, 6,000 plus troops, which is a lot of troops. Get the same in the province next to it, and Middlesex is Essex is a 4 province duchy, which we don't have those 2 at the moment. But if you can get 2 counties with maximum holding slots and maximum castles in those counties, then you can have a lot of troops in your personal domain, which is brilliant for stopping rebellions and stopping factions from forming. So you should absolutely try and get, if there is a spare castle in one of your provinces, you should absolutely try and nick it from whoever's holding it as soon as you can. Here we go. So a few months back I repositioned the Chancellor from Surrey down to Sussex. He wasn't getting anywhere, I don't think anyway, with fabricating claim in Surrey. So I moved him down to Sussex, which is 1 province over, so it makes the borders less pretty, which is a bit of a crime against humanity. But as you can see, he has fabricated a claim. It's pretty cheap early on because again our income is pretty minimal. It's gone up because we took that extra barony, but it's still pretty small. The prestige cost is also relatively small, so there's really no reason not to do this at this point. We'll take it. Right now it's worth checking on this guy. So his martial score is woeful, which is good because it means that his troops are going to be very small. So he can only muster 294 guys. We've got 972. So the reason I checked on his pacts is that if he had an alliance with, say, Wessex next door, they could probably pull up a couple of thousand troops or so. So just checking that he doesn't have anything. All he's got is a non-aggression pact with some dude over in Finland, which means that no one is going to come and rescue him when we invade, which we're going to do right now. So we could call in allies because King Offa of Mercia is our suzerain. He's the guy who we pay tribute to. if we declare a war, we can invite him to come and join us. We're not going to do that because A, he's a jerk, and B, this is entirely unnecessary. What I am going to do though is not lead our armies. That would be a bad idea. Get Dad instead to do that, and let's roll. We outnumber them 3-1, so this should be an absolute rollover. Also, because they've only got one stack of troops, we flank them on both sides, which is basically a guaranteed win. It's that easy. And can we recruit? Oh no, we can't recruit him. Okay. We're going to keep him in prison. We can't ransom him for anything, so there's no point ransoming him. He's got a really good diplomacy score, or at least he did before we threw him in the dungeon. So his diplomacy is 21, which is very good, pretty much whatever the stage of the game. So what I'm going to try and do, if we can, is when the war ends, we'll see if we can recruit him and make him our new Chancellor. The Bishop of St. Paul's he's good, but I don't care about him. I just want as high a diplomacy score as possible, really. Ah, that's nice. Our Spymaster, who is still stuck out in Constantinople, has come back with 50 technology points. 50 economy technology points, which is, yeah, that's not too shabby. Research is, excuse me, I'm trying to remember when they updated the technology thing. It was probably 2 years ago or so now. There are still various things that you'll probably never improve depending on what government type you're playing at. As a feudal ruler, you're probably only going to go down the castle infrastructure and improved keeps and construction route. Town infrastructure and church infrastructure give very, very little benefit to feudal rulers. Apart from letting your vassals build more stuff in their towns, which they will do eventually, but you don't see a lot of benefit from that. Trade practices, if you had holdings in, say, the Middle East, so let's say you were the Abbasids controlling all of this, or whoever these guys are here, and you're a feudal ruler who holds, say, Antioch, because there is a trade route that goes through it, the Silk Road, you could build a trade post there, which they have. And therefore there is some bonus to increasing your trade practices because it lets you build more trade posts. But as the ruler of Essex, we're in absolutely no position to get any benefit from that. So from economy, you're going to go down a couple of different things. Particular construction is good because it also lets you improve, in addition to improving the build time and build cost modifier, which gets significant, I should say. It also lets you build additional things in the hospital, which you can then build. So you can build a hospital in any of your provinces, and there are buildings which you can attach to it as you go through the construction tree. So you're not going to get there for a while to the extensive hospital complex at Construction 6, but you will get there eventually. For military advances, some people can get a lot of mileage out of improving these. I guess particularly heavy infantry or siege equipment you can get quite a lot out of. If you're playing as a Norse pagan, then if you can get some quick technology points and boost shipbuilding, then when the event comes through that gives shipbuilding to all Norse cultures, it goes up by 1. So if you're already at level 1, then you get to level 2, which can be a very nice boost. But I tend to go for military organisation, if for no other reason than I can get some retinues out really early on, which let me be much more independent with attacking and particularly defending against those fucking Vikings. For cultural advances, yeah, noble customs, popular customs and religious customs are just as worthless as they ever were. Tolerance is slightly useful if you're going to go down the route of making sure that you have full status of women. Majesty is a lot more useful than it was because at level 5 you get imperial administration. So if you're going for a large empire, if you can rush Majesty level 5, that can do you a lot of good. And then legalism, I think as it's always been, is a very useful thing to have. lets you change up some of your laws really quickly, and gives you access to some of the better inheritance as well. So if you can get like late feudal administration or regulated inheritance, you can get some of the better inheritance laws really quickly. So at the moment we're just waiting for Sussex to siege down. We don't have any decent commanders, so it's going to take a while. Thankfully Sussex have got very few troops, so they're not going to do any damage to Middlesex there. This is just a tedious thing we've got to do. Interestingly, King Offa apparently tried to revoke a title from this guy, who said no. So he is currently at war with him. We could, in theory, we could attack him because we have de jure claims on Bedford and Northampton. We don't have the troops, and he would probably call in his allies. But it's worth keeping an eye, if you start as Essex, keeping an eye on what this guy is up to, because if he gets into a costly rebel fight, a costly civil war, and you've got the troops hanging around, and he doesn't have any allies, you can very easily grab one of these two at any given time, which obviously strengthens you and weakens him at the same time. So it's definitely worth watching what this gets up to. So our suzerain, the jerk king of Mercia, has just asked us to join in a fight against Bjornmund of Mercian Revolt. So this guy, this 11-year-old, who I'm sure is absolutely the person who decided to go to war against his feudal ruler. Yeah. He wants us to do that. So what we're going to do is we are going to accept, and we're going to raise our troops, and all we're going to do is join them here. So we get no benefit from this. So we're just going to wander around to there and see if we can join in with this fight. And the advantage of doing this is you get more prestige from being an ally in a battle than you do from being the actual person who started the fight. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to roll in here, and I think that's, well, no, we'll just wait until, there we go, we're going to go down to Oxford and start a fight with these guys again. And there we go, we've won that, so let's go back to Middlesex and peace out. By which I mean we're going to disband our troops and leave our suzerain to it, because he is the one who probably started this. Did he start it? I don't care. I don't like him anyway, so we're not going to have anything more to do with that. He's outnumbered, which is hilarious. He probably will win just through his troops reinforcing at a fast enough rate to do it. And like you can see there, he was outnumbered like by 50%, and he still won the fight. So he's got this pretty handily, and he will recognise that we joined in, and he won't think we're complete jerks. So finally, 6 years of game time after we started and got married to her, our darling wife has finally got pregnant. I actually got fed up with this and switched from the business focus to the family focus, which, as I said before, gives a 25% bonus to fertility. Because we don't have many children, we kind of get an innate bonus to fertility anyway. So I suspect what's happened is that Sigeric here has just rolled a pretty low fertility score, or Dalfarada. Could be either. As I say, we start off with this guy as our heir, so that doesn't affect anything. So it's probably just that one of these two has just come with a very low fertility score anyway. Fertility is kind of randomly generated at the start of the game, and doesn't always seem to be affected by, it's always affected by the traits, but the traits themselves don't necessarily tell you what the fertility is. So you could have someone who's got, say, lustful and hedonist, which is another bonus to fertility, who's still only got about a 60% fertility. And likewise, you could have someone without any traits that improve fertility who has something like 115%. So it's a bit random, and you only know what they are if you turn if you use a couple of console commands to show it anyway. So most of the time you just got to work out, you know, have I got enough kids here? Could there be something? Could I do something differently that would give me an additional child? Obviously, on this occasion, I've done something, and subsequently it has granted me a potential child. Since Reaper's Due expansion, having your wife be pregnant doesn't necessarily mean that you will have both your wife and child once the baby is born. Infant mortality has gone down dramatically since that expansion. Infant mortality has, well, I'd say infant mortality in the first year of life, and your wife's expectancy for being alive after the baby's born has gone down dramatically as well. Basically, it sucks to be a woman having children in this game, which I guess is pretty much accurate for the time period. Okay, so having said that previously, Athil Gifu has been born. She appears fairly standard, and Dalfarada is still alive, which is always a nice surprise once a baby is born. Our monthly balance is continuing to tick up very slowly. At this stage in the game, until you've got a few holdings, your income is going to be fairly small. So early game expansion is just about trying to grab provinces until you've got a decent financial base to actually move on with that. Some random person has come of age. Don't know who he is. Can we marry him to anyone? Yes, let's marry you to Erigith. I don't know who either of you are. Two random people. Oh! Okay, you were the Baron's wife. Okay, fine, whatever. Right, our son has just turned 12, which means we get to choose the second focus for him. Since... oh, is it Reaper's Due, Monks and Mystics? One of those two. Or maybe previously, I can't remember at this point. The education system was refined, and they since added in some GUI functions to make it slightly easier to choose. He's got curious, playful, and timid. Playful, like I said before, I always find a bit... well, it says rarely lunatic. Bullshit to that. Lunatic far more often than it needs to come up. So that could turn into it. He's definitely stronger with diplomacy. Actually, learning's come up quite a bit, which I think comes from curious, maybe? Yeah, curious. And timid. Now, curious can turn into shrewd, and generally has good outcomes. So we're going to go with diplomatic education. It's probably a bit of a coin toss which way he'll go at this point. I don't think he's going to turn out great. It'd be, if you get two green sort of traits next to one of these, then you probably would want to go for that. One is probably good enough for me. So we're going to go with that and cross our fingers that he doesn't turn into someone horrible. Good news for Princess Dalfarada, the Queen of Essex. She's had a second child, another daughter, Leofran, who I'm actually going to call after Dalfarada's mother, because I'm magnanimous like that. It's good for Princess Dalfarada because I was actually going to start plotting to have her killed, because after, 9 years of marriage she's only had one child. Probably worth sticking with her for the time being. I'd like another son, to be honest. I don't think there are any women we could very easily marry at this point. We could check by using him. Anyone at all? No, there's just this woman here who is pretty unremarkable, really. The start of the game, you do find that you're a bit hard pushed for decent options when it comes to getting married. There is the option in the game settings to present a debutante, which can be helpful because it basically just randomly generates a female character of 17 years old. And if you've got plenty of money, you can basically spam it a whole bunch until you find someone vaguely useful. At the moment, we've only got 290 gold, and this is costing us basically 12 a go, so we can only do it 12, what, 10 times before we run out of cash. So with the paucity of decent options and the fact that, I mean, she's not terrible as far as stats go, we might as well hang on to her for the time being. I mean, if she dies, then I wouldn't be bothered, but for the time being, I don't care that much. What I am going to think about doing, though, is just have a look and see what the options are in terms of societies. Benedictines and Dominicans are boring as hell. We don't have a high enough learning score for the Hermetics, and Lucifer's Own is fun but a bit of a hassle. And I mean, to be fair, the guy we've got he doesn't really seem like the kind of Lucifer's Own person. If he was like proud and envious, possessed, lunatic, then I'd probably go for it just for the role-playing purposes. But I mean, apart from Elusive Shadow, he's erudite, he's honest, which I mean sucks, by the way. Diligent, patient. I mean, lustful, yeah, maybe. So I don't think he's someone who would look to join Lucifer's Own. But like I say, none of the other societies are a reasonable option at the time for this time. Dominicans are just a money sinker, and I don't feel like we need a gay lover at this point. So we're probably just going to wait for our new child to be born. Oh, sorry. We'll wait and see if Dalfarada has any more children. And yeah, until we know what's going on with that, we'll keep waiting. I've moved my Chancellor over to Kent now to see if he can fabricate a claim on that, because Surrey is apparently impervious to this, despite that he's got a terrible score and the Chancellor is not exactly good either. Yeah, almost 10 years into the game and we haven't done an awful lot, but no, that's Crusader Kings 2, I suppose. So at the moment we managed to fabricate a claim on Kent, which is quite nice. Let's send him over to Suffolk for reasons I'll explain in a moment. Kent also has King Offa of Mercia as their suzerain, and therefore he would be available to help them in the event of war, except that he's also our suzerain and therefore can't choose sides, basically. So they can't call him in as an ally because he's also our ally. So it's safe to attack them if you fabricate a claim, because what's he going to do, basically? He's also got, for some reason, he owns the Bishop of Canterbury. Bishopric of Canterbury. I don't know how that works, but whatever. It means that when we take Kent, which we're going to do, we will get the county capital, Dover, and the Bishopric of Rochester and Sandwich, which is, I guarantee you, a real place. But we won't get the Bishopric of Canterbury. That will still belong to, well, it will be the vassal of our suzerain. Fine, whatever. Our money's a little bit low at the moment. Partly that's because we fabricated the claim, and partly that's because I built a militia training ground in Westminster, which is quite good because it means that we increase the number of troops that we can get. They're mostly light infantry and archers at this point, which are terrible in terms of if you actually have a massive fight on. They're awful at getting anything done, really. But early on in the game, where troops are limited in number, it is useful to have them, because most of what you're winning is just through you're winning fights through sheer numbers rather than actually having the best troops. So because we've got the Groom and Heir thingy, was that? Yeah, Groom and Heir ambition. Because our son is now, was he 15? 15 and a half, we can introduce him to the realm. This can go horribly wrong very often, but whatever, why not? We can also now create the title of the Duchy of Kent. It's a bit misleading because it already existed before we deposed the previous Duke of Kent, Petty King, sorry, of Kent. So basically we now have to pay, how much was it? 174 gold to recreate the title, which would then give us a de jure claim on the county of Surrey if we do it. We will do that eventually, because of there are advantages to having multiple duke titles, not least is which that your domain goes up as a grand duke, I think they call it.
Right, where are we? Do we want to give this guy a favour? For the sake of one learning, yeah, why not? Learning is sort of finally, since Monks and Mystics, an attribute worth improving. Because if you get your learning up to 10 or more, you can join the Hermetic Society and take advantage of the hilariously overpowered artifacts that you can accumulate and the general stuff that you can do. So if you can get your learning up to 10 plus for your whatever character you're playing, then you should absolutely take advantage of that, because it is stupidly overpowered at times. Yeah, the number of options you have for dealing with some things are nothing short of hilarious. Right, so our court chaplain has decided that London is an apostate. Sorry, a warlock. I feel bad because I mean this guy was awful when we sent him down to Constantinople, but he's actually come through 3 times with technology points. So I feel bad for burning him at the stake, but
And Mayor Hospital of Sandwich, who wants to be a vassal and wants to be on the council. +1 marshal. Probably not worth it for the sake of a favour. Our new spy master. Okay, he'll do. So at the moment, we are now 10 years into the game, so we have the option of choosing elective monarchy. We start off, as many feudal kingdoms do, or lands do, with Gavelkind. Gavelkind is an awful succession law. The way that it works is basically that on your death, your lands are divided up among your eligible children according to the rank of title that you have. So if, for example, you've got 3 eligible children, 3 sons, and when you die you have 3 counties, and only 3 counties, and each of your children, each of your eligible sons, will gain one of those counties. And because they're all the same level of title, they're all county titles, 2 of your sons you would take control of your eldest son, and the 2 others would become independent rulers of their own single counties. If you die as a duke, or a petty king, if you're in England, who controls a single duchy and 3 counties, what will happen is that your eldest son will inherit the duchy, and your second eldest son will probably inherit the capital province, and your third eldest child will inherit probably your second most valuable province. So if in this situation, ignoring Kent, we had Middlesex, Essex and Sussex, if I had 3 children, 3 sons, the eldest would take the capital province, the capital duchy, sorry, and the worst province, so Sussex. The second eldest would take Middlesex, and the third would take Essex. But Middlesex and Essex would still be controlled by the eldest son who had the duchy title. Basically, Gavelkind is a really great way to lose lots of expansion if you're not really, really careful, and if you don't know what you're doing. Because we're 10 years in, we have the option of switching to elective monarchy. Elective is still not good, and your vassals would generally choose to vote for whoever you don't want them to vote for. They're particularly contrary like that. But it is still much better than Gavelkind. So it's something we're going to look for, because all you really need is to have reign for 10 years and that none of your vassals have a negative opinion of you. At the moment they do. The Mayor of Sandwich is okay, he doesn't like us, but it's not a big problem. The The Mayor of Lewis, however, doesn't like us, and this is a bit more of a problem because he didn't like me, so I tried to have him killed, and as a result he likes me even less. So the Mayor of Sandwich we could bring round, we could bribe him and he'll be happy, and his opinion of us will go above 0 for long enough that we can change to monarchy. This guy, I probably could have bribed him, but I didn't. I've been trying to kill him for a little while, so the plot power is well above 150% at this point. We've just got to wait for it to happen. Thankfully, we don't have any illnesses. We're still only 35. We're not leading any armies, so our chances of dying randomly are fairly low, which I'm going to hold on to for this moment. We'll have to think, if we start getting ill, we'll have to think about what the plan is to follow on from that. But for the time being, we're just going to have to suck it up and wait for, hopefully, our friends to back a successful plot to kill him. Our son, Sigurd Sigurdsson, has come of age, which is great. As you can see, he's uninspiring. He's also stressed because he apparently wanted to become a monk, and we said, no, you fucking idiot, you can't. Kids. So it's time for him to get married. If we click on this arranged marriage list, the options are bad. Like, uniformly terrible. Most of the children, most of the ones on this list, there's only 2 who are of age. Neither of whom are great. She's 36, so she's only got like 4 years of childbearing left in her. She's got a title, so she holds a claim to the title of Tuscany, but that's pointless because our father-in-law holds the entire kingdom, and apparently went on a jihad to like get rid of everyone's title. She's not awful, but not great about the whole intrigue skill of naught. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something a bit different for him, simply because his options are awful. I mean, he's not. His traits are okay, apart from Craven. He's got Patient and Gregarious, which are good. Underhanded Rogue, that could improve still. He gets a bit of a bonus to fertility as well as a result. So what we're going to do is instead find someone as like this lovely woman I found earlier. Winfrieda. She was previously married to the Count of Miguel, I think it is. Diplomacy score of 24, which is great. We're going to get 12 of that if we add it onto him. So he's 13, that'll go up to 25 before we even have any chancellors or councillors adding to it. She doesn't have great traits generally, but I think Genius, I always like trying to get some positive genetic traits into the family where I can. She's 24, he's 16, let's just do it. And he will get a prestige hit from this, so he'll take minus 20 prestige as a result, but fuck it, I don't care. She's a good enough option to marry that we may as well go for it. We now need to choose a new ambition, once I click on the right thing. King of England is still too far off to warrant doing it, so we're going to go with build a war chest. As a duchy, it means that if we hit 500 florins, the ambition is considered complete. That just means that I'm going to have to remember that if we get close to 500 gold, that we just basically need to start spending money. But that's going to be a way off for the time being. We have our first epidemic that I've seen in this part of the world. Interestingly, everyone else in England seems to be suffering from smallpox, but here in Middlesex we're suffering from consumption. What that means is that we now have the option to shut the gates, sorry. I kind of go back and forth on this one. Sometimes I feel like if things are going well, you might as well close the gates, just because, you know, if you've got a good king who is generally liked, you don't have any particular pressing issues to deal with, you might as well shut the gates and try and ride it out. The problem is that epidemics do tend to last for, well, they tend to last about 2 years in my experience, but they can go for around 4 to 5. And if it lasts 4 to 5 years, then you start running into trouble, like running out of food in your castle. And at that point you end up having to open the gates before the epidemic cleared. And it seems like if you do that, then your chances of actually getting the illness go up significantly. So we've got an heir. He is of age. We're probably just going to have to roll the dice and hope that nothing happens to either us or him. I mean, Dalfarad is still youngish. She could have a couple more kids before she turns 40, although the age at which she's had her other two children suggests only one more is likely. But we're getting to the point now where there are a suitable number of children coming of age, suitable number of women coming of age, that we could probably get another wife without too much hassle if she dies. So we're not going to close the gates. We're just going to hope that no one in our court becomes ill. As you can see, that decision worked about as well as I was expecting it to. Oops. So, this was probably inevitable as soon as we got consumption. We've died, and King Sigerid the Boring has become king, which is nice for him. Right, so let's make sure we're paused. We need to sort out our council again. These guys are mostly... Well, some of them are alright. They're not great, but who cares? We did get a new steward in, because the previous one, I think he died, and we didn't have anyone decent on staff, so we invited Cadell from wherever he was over in deepest, darkest Wales. And we got a new court physician who apparently is woeful, because, like, what the fuck, guy? I died like 3 days after contracting consumption. That doesn't even make sense. But he is statistically the best choice for it. Set these guys up again, so go to Suffolk, my good man. You train there. Connect taxes there. Study technology. No, scheme. And you, on the other hand, can go down to Rome and buddy up with the Pope, for all I care. Right, choose a focus. Now, what we want here is we want children. She's already pregnant, which is great. Actually, we're going to go scholarship. Because I would like this guy to join the Hermetics if possible. Scholarship and Paragon of Virtue. Yeah, become a Paragon of Virtue. Why not? So I'm hoping that because they've been married a little over a year and she's already pregnant, I'm hoping the fertility between the two of them is relatively good. Set crown focus back to Middlesex. We could build an observatory. Yeah, let's do that. Still can't afford to create the Duchy of Kent title, which totally existed before we, I don't know, did something. Destiny Regent. Is she still around? Yes, she's still around. Let's make her the guardian of him, because why not, I guess. Yeah, I mean, we might as well. She's got 2 children still in our court, so there's really no point in not doing it. I mean, oh, for goodness sake, our 6-year-old sister is depressed. I don't know, I don't think the DSM would consider a 6-year-old to be properly depressed. I think they'd have to be like 10 or something, but whatever. She's not depressed, which is nice, but she's also not great. One thing we did do is we have a... Oh, who was it? Let's see if we can assign her to her. Excellent. So our current wife, Winfrieda, has a 6-year-old daughter who is also a genius. What I've done is invited her to invited her mum, our wife, to be her guardian. What that means is that our Sindis here will join our court, with the aim being that we could marry her off to someone so that we keep those precious genius genes in our court, which would be very helpful indeed. So we currently find ourselves in a bit of a, I would say a tricky spot, but in need of some good decision making. We've got a claim on the county of Suffolk, which is useful, and I should probably turn to go somewhere else actually. So he can draw 764 troops, so 700 for himself, 52 from vassals. Unfortunately, because the guy we've got is so terrible, we can only draw 1,067 at the moment. So we can attack him and take Suffolk, which would be, we should win that enough. If we lose some troops, we can always fall back and reinforce and go and attack him, and our troops should reinforce quickly enough that should be doable. But we're at a domain size of 5 of 5, and because from a technology point of view we haven't been able to improve legalism, we can't increase our centralisation to get that up, which is fine, because we could create the Duchy of Kent, which should push our domain size up, our maximum domain size up by 1 to 5, so we'd be at 5 of 6, meaning that we could take one additional province, county, and still be inside a domain limit, which keeps our income at maximum and puts our troop numbers at maximum. If you go over your domain size, then both of those things start to come down, as well as your vassals hating you, but we wouldn't have an issue with that for the time being. But if we do that, then we would lose, well, it's, how much is it, 190 gold, so we'd have 15 left in the kitty. We could take out a loan so that we'd have extra money, but that would make a lot of our vassals hate us. And I'm also aware that we do eventually want to go to elected monarchy, so we want to have enough money that we can bribe people as necessary so that we can vote for it and win. So it's a bit of a toss-up here. I'd also quite like at some point to build some additional facilities here, like particularly at, say, militia training ground would be really nice, so we've got an extra 90 troops, plus, well, actually not plus much at all with the terrible martial skill we've got. So it would be useful to have some additional troops, but for the time being, I think the only pact he's got is again with the Petty King of Mercia. Do we? Yeah, we're still a tributary of him, so we should be able to attack him without this guy without the Petty King of Mercia getting involved. So let's give this a go. Bring all our troops around here and basically, so 1,079 make. Why would we ever want to command us? Oh, bloody idiot. Oh, we really need some better commanders. Well, this should be doable. There's no terrain that we're crossing here that makes it difficult. We outnumber them. I mean, Suffolk is about as flat as a part of land as you're going to get in England by anyway. Because we took the scholarship focus and we built an observatory, we occasionally will get some bonuses to military technology points. We're still a way off being able to get up to more retinues, but our overall area of our empire is still quite small, so we're not going to get much out of that anyway. They're going to go and squat on Essex to try and siege that down. I think we should be able to beat them, so we've got 229 versus 268. Yeah, that should be doable. This is me trying to find a decent option for Chancellor. We don't really have one to appoint from in-house. He's okay, but not great. We get a few years out of him, why not? The bigger your realm gets, the more options you've got about who you employ on your council, and also who is a good choice to employ. So if you can avoid it, you should try not to have any just landless courtiers on your council, because the bonuses you get from having powerful vassals on your council are significant enough to make it worth doing. You know, they're happier because of it. They can't join factions. But certainly early on in the game, where really the only factions you've got will be ones started by, like, we got anyone? No, we got none at the moment. So, you know, while all of your vassals are Baron level, or yeah, where they're small, you may as well just go for it, because the advantages you get from having actually competent people doing the job vastly outweigh the downsides of, you know, making some pissant priest somewhere a bit unhappy with you. Oh, come the fuck on! Jesus Christ. So we just lost that despite massively outnumbering them, being on home territory, and there being... I mean, there isn't a territorial... There's no terrain penalty to doing it. It's just fuck you, basically. So I'm going to respond in the best way I know how, which is basically to recruit some better people instead. So he is now joined, which is nice. He's brought his dubiously charming wife and child, who's actually pretty good. Let's take advantage of that shit while we can. So he's quick, which is great, and we've just betrothed him to our half-sister, because I want those sweet genetic traits, basically. Right, Commander, fuck off, we want Framicus? Yeah, Framicus. Let's No, we can't disband, can we? We might not win this, but what I'm hoping to do is just to grind them down enough that they can't continue the siege. Well, I'm optimist. Yeah, there we go. And as soon as... Oh, dwarf, great. Right. As soon as they leave, we can disband and immediately call up more troops than we had before and go to Suffolk. Okay, so because we built an observatory and we are exploring the mysteries of the universe, the Pope, who is less holy than me probably, feels that he can join in. So I'm going to tell him to fuck off, because A, I don't care, he's not going to do anything to us for the time being, and there's a chance of getting Brave. There we go. Brave is great. You get a bit of personal combat skill, which is great in case anyone decides that they want to challenge you, which does sometimes happen. And it boosts your martial score, which ours was awful before and is merely bad now. So we should definitely be working on that. There are some benefits to having the Pope like you. You can request money from him, but it's hard to do. The Pope has to really like you. And even if he does really like you, you've got to get in between the times where he's giving money to someone he likes and when he actually builds it up again. So he does have tons and tons of money, but it's like threading a needle trying to work out the best time to ask him for it, because he frequently runs out between you asking for it and him deciding to give it to you. Speaking of money, right, we've actually got enough now that I'm going to create the Duchy of Kent, and given a second or two, yeah, our maximum domain has ticked up to 5 of 6, which means that when we eventually siege down Suffolk, we can take that and keep it in our domain without having any penalties to it. And this right here is the benefit of building the observatory and going down that route and telling the Pope to bog off basically, is you get some pretty decent bonuses. I could take or leave the military point, although as you can see we've built up enough to go up to the next level of military organisation. But actually the +1 to learning is really good because it means that we can actually join the Hermetic Society, which, as I said before, is really rather cool. It's like I say, it's very overpowered at times, and if you were to tell me that some of the activities are like make work that you have to do, I wouldn't disagree with you. But for the bonuses you get, why would you ever not join? Pretty much. And because we can, we may as well make our wife our apprentice. We get a little bonus to her liking us as a result. Well, +20 actually, so +10 for being the apprentice and +10 because as a result she joins the Hermetic Society as well. So there's literally no reason not to make someone. You could. I've done it in the past where you make a family member who doesn't like you your apprentice, which is quite nice because it means that A, they like you a bit more, B, they've generally got a claim on your territory, so it sort of persuades them not to do that, and B, it just feels right from a role-playing perspective to make your, I don't know, your second sister your apprentice, so you can go out and collect wild herbs and pretend you're having a great old time, while you're doing it. Right, so we're still in this dodgy position of having shit martial score. So the battles we win are ones that we have to pick fairly carefully. We do still have a claim on Surrey. It would be a de jure claim rather than a personal claim. So all the other claims that we've created on, say, Sussex, Kent and Suffolk have been personal claims to say that we have a claim to hold that province, that county. A de jure claim means that we would basically say, because we've got the Duchy of Kent, we are in control of it, but you would still be the Earl. Sorry, you would still control that county, but you would serve us. We could probably take that quite easily, but I'm going to wait because our troops are not very high at the moment.